Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I look a little crazy. Don't worry, I'm not doing a makeup tutorial on how to achieve this look. I am, however, doing a tips and tricks for hooded eye makeup. And initially I was gonna do just a tips and trick tutorial, but then I realized I really wanted to illustrate the things that I'm gonna tell you not to do. I really wanted to show you why and kind of the effect that they create on the eye. So I decided rather than making this a hooded eye makeup tutorial, this would be a do's and don'ts for hooded eyes. So obviously, if you can't tell, the right eye is the do tips and tricks. The left eye is the what you might not want to do and why. Yes, I was a little bit more dramatic on this eye. Maybe I went a little heavier than I needed to, but I really wanted to illustrate the things that I'm saying not to do and kind of the effect that they have on the way your eye makeup looks. So without further ado, let's get started. Wait, but before we get started, if you are not subscribed to my channel, please do so. I would love you to stick around and see all my future videos. Also, hit that bell notification because I'm finding out that a lot of you aren't being notified when my videos are going up, and that makes me super sad. And then you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. Those are the two that I can keep up with. I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on Snapchat, but find me on Facebook and Instagram. It's Lisa J Makeup, and let's stay connected. All right, guys, let's get started. So let's talk about hooded eyes before we get started. There are varying degrees of hooded eyes, right? A hooded eye doesn't mean that it's the same for everybody. Some of us, you don't see any of your eyelid. Some of us, you see a little bit of your eyelid. Some of us, you have a very mild hooded eye. Mild, I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but you know what I mean. It's a very subtle hooded eye. I kind of fall into that category. Like if you, depending on how I tilt my head or which direction I'm looking, my hooded eyes may seem more obvious or may not. My right eye is more hooded than my left. I'm going to see, it's hard too because I want to look directly at you and explain it. I also want to look in the monitor so I can kind of describe what I'm talking about, but when I do that, it changes the whole way that I look. So I'm just going to kind of look directly on. I don't know if you can tell, but the right eye, there is less of my eyelid that you can actually see. On my left eye, you can see more. I have lash extensions, so that's a little bit of a distraction, and it actually kind of compensates for that. In fact, that's kind of why I find myself always going back to lash extensions, because it does just open my eye up so much more, and to me, it just makes the difference in the two eyes less noticeable. When I don't have lash extensions, I feel like you can really tell a difference in my right eye. In fact, I'm gonna post a picture for you guys to check out right over here. I'm gonna check right over here for you to check out. This goes to show you my eyes before lash extensions and my eyes after. If you look at this picture, the top portion, the before picture, you can clearly see that right eye is a lot more hooded. There's less eyelid that you can see, and you can see how lash extensions really balance that out. But anyway, this video is not about lash extensions, so let's move on from that. Okay, so now that I've kind of talked about that, let's go ahead and get started with the tutorial. First and foremost, you always want to put a primer. I believe you should wear a primer whether you have hooded eyes or not, but especially for hooded eyes, you definitely want to have a primer because a hooded eye means that the skin above your crease kind of folds over onto your eyelid. And so when you have that fold, it just gives more opportunity for shadow to move around, shadow to crease. Especially if you have oily skin, it just makes the creasing of eyeshadow more likely. So we are going to put a primer on that eye. I am using the Milani primer. You guys know I love this one, and I'm just using my finger. Okay. I'm gonna skip it on the left eye. So next, I like to kind of set my entire eyelid with a skin tone eyeshadow color. You could also use a translucent powder. You could use your face powder that you used to touch up with. Basically, you just wanna use something that has very little color variation from your actual skin tone, and something that's just gonna set that primer and create like an even canvas for the eyeshadow that you're gonna apply. I'm gonna reach into the Viseart Neutral Matte Palette, and I'm just gonna let's grab this one. Right here. This one's a little too light. I'm gonna grab this one. You could do the lighter one, but I'm just gonna go with the shade just a little bit deeper than that because it's closest to my skin tone. And I'm just gonna dust this all over my lid from lashes to my eyebrow. Okay. So crease. Crease is the hot topic of a hooded eye. Part of a hooded eye means that you don't really see that defined crease. So for me, what I like to recommend is that you look directly straight into a mirror and you apply that color, that shadow, just above where your crease would be, or kind of where you want to create the illusion of a crease. Okay, so when I look into this mirror, I see my natural crease is really right here. But you can see when I look at someone, that crease disappears under the fold. So I do not want to go directly in here, because what happens when I do that and then I look at you, it's gone. You don't see anything. So I'm going to use this as a guide, but I'm really going to create that crease color to be a little bit higher. I almost like to describe it as a halo above the crease. You want a soft diffusion of color. So I'm going to go with a shade that is deeper than my skin tone, but not really that dark. I'm going to start there. I can always go darker if I want more of a dramatic eye, but I always want to start with a shade that is just a little bit deeper than my natural skin. That is going to give you the most beautiful, just airbrushed kind of blended look. So while I have this palette in front of me, I'm gonna go ahead and grab it. This is the Tarte in Bloom palette, and I'm gonna grab this shade right here. It's called Jet Setter, and you can see that it's just a really good kind of soft, medium, matte crease color. So I'm gonna go in here with that, and I'm just gonna start in my outer corner and go back and forth, kind of like a windshield wiper. Now I am gonna take that pretty high up. Because it is not that dark, I'm gonna take it a little bit high, almost to where my eyebrow starts. So I'm gonna take it over there, and then I'm gonna kind of take it straight out. I'm not gonna pull it down. I'm really just gonna kind of take it straight out, almost to where it meets the end of my eyebrow. You also want to go with a matte shade, because matte is going to create the illusion of a crease, whereas shimmer is going to do the opposite. Okay, so that's what we have. Next, I'm going to show you what not to do on the left eye. So what not to do, you do not want to go with a shade that's a lot darker than your natural skin tone. You don't want to start off there. Again, you can always build there, but you don't want to start off there. And you don't want to grab a shade with a lot of shimmer. You don't want to grab a really metallic shade. So for this demonstration, I'm going to grab this shade right here. It's a beautiful shade, but it's just not the right shade I would pick for my crease, my transition shade. And I'm going to start in the outer corner, and I'm going to bring it over, and I'm going to kind of pull it down. You don't want to do that. You don't want to pull it down, because that's just going to make the eye more droopy. It's not going to give you the illusion of a like lifted eye. Okay, and you can see that it is very, very, very shimmery. Because I'm going with something so dark and so shimmery, it's actually going to kind of weigh the eye down. So you're do and you don't. Okay, so next, if you do want to create a little bit more drama, or you want to create a little bit more glam on the eye than just this, you can go in with another shade. I recommend a matte shade that's a little bit deeper than what you just applied. So I'm going to grab, I'm actually going to grab a mixture of these two shades. This like really like medium kind of cool toned like gray shade, and then this one that's very similar but a little more brown. And then I'm going to start in the outer corner, and I'm just going to softly go back and forth. I'm not going to go too far over, because again, I don't want to weigh that eye down. I'm just going to keep it right here in the outer corner, and then I'm going to kind of bring it down to a V. So if you want to imagine that you're creating almost the shape of a V on the corner of your eye. So you're starting on your outer corner, you're V'ing up, and then you're V'ing over here. If you were to look at it this way, it would look like a V on the outer corner of the eye. That's what you're creating. And I always recommend being very light-handed. You can always build and add more, but again, it's very difficult to go back and correct if you go in with too much color. More is not always better. Okay. And you can see that I'm not bringing it further than the end of my eyebrow. I haven't even done brows yet, but I'm not bringing it further than that. I'm really using that as my guideline. If I had an imaginary line right here, you could see that the shadow is going to end right where the brow ends. You can also see that I'm just keeping that darkness on the outer corner. I'm not bringing it too far over, because I don't have a lot of lid space that you can see or work with. I don't want to make that area too dark, because it's going to make my eyes look smaller, and I really want to create more of an open, bright-eyed, wide-eyed look. So to demonstrate what not to do, I'm going to go in with a darker shade. So because this shade is so much darker, in order for me to achieve a darker look, I'm going to go in with something like this. And I'm using a lot bigger brush. So the brush I recommend for using a hooded eye, and I actually didn't use it on this part, I'm going to start using it from now on, but it's the 221 by MAC. It's a lot smaller of a brush, and it's a lot easier to control where you apply product. I've talked about this brush in a lot of videos, but you can see between these two brushes just how smaller and more precise the 221 is. This one is actually kind of frayed out a little bit, but it just gives you a lot more control of where you put that color. So for the don't, I'm gonna grab a larger brush and I'm gonna grab a darker shade, and we are gonna just kind of go over that in the outer corner. So again, what you don't wanna do is you don't wanna bring it too far down, which is what we're doing. It just really weighs the eye down. So now you can see what adding a darker color does to both techniques. So next I'm gonna apply my lid color, and here I am gonna play with a little bit of shimmer. Shimmer is not off limits for hooded eyes. I don't even think it's necessarily off limits for mature eyes. I really think it's about the quality of shadows that you use and the level of shimmer that you use. I personally think that a satin sheen type finish on a shadow looks more complementary on a hooded eye or a more mature eye than like a really foiled metallic shadow. So I like to use shadows that have a soft, subtle sheen, so they're not flat and matte, but they're not like metallic, frosty disco ball either. So for this look, I'm gonna grab this shade right here. Let me see which one it is. It's by Makeup Geek, and it is called and it is Homecoming. So I actually think this might be a frost shadow, but I'm gonna use a soft application in it so that it's not, you know, in your face. I'm using a 213 brush by MAC. I really like this brush because it's small and it has a little curved edge, so it really helps you kind of follow that line of that crease. And it's a little soft and fluffy, so it's not super dense, so it's not going to, especially if you're working with shimmer, you don't want it to be really dense because then it's just gonna pack on a lot of shimmer. For this look, I want that shimmer to be pretty soft, so I'm gonna use this 213 brush, and I am gonna just load the side of my brush up, and I'm just gonna go and kind of press this on the eyelid. I'm gonna keep the inner corner of the eyelid bare because I am gonna go in with a color that's a little brighter there. Okay, so now what not to do. So I'm gonna go in with this really metallic foiled shadow, and I'm gonna load up my brush and I'm gonna pack it on my eye. Now don't get me wrong, you guys, this shadow is very beautiful, and I'm not saying I don't wear it, and I'm not saying you can't wear it if you had hooded eyes. I'm just showing you different techniques, not to combine them all together, because it's not really going to create that lifted open eye for a hooded eye, if that makes sense. I really don't want this video to be misconstrued as you can't use this shadow and you can't use this brush, because that's not the case. I'm just saying that to create an open eye for a hooded eye, it's not going to do that for you by using these techniques and these types of products all together, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna pack this all over the eye to kind of compare the two. So far on the right eye, I've worked with both matte and shimmer shadows. On the left eye, I've only worked with foiled metallic shadows. So next I'm going to highlight the inner corner of the eye, and I am going to use this shade. I believe this one is also by Makeup Geek. It's called Shimma Shimma by Makeup Geek. This does have a shimmer to it, so again I'm going to apply it really softly. I'm going to use the same brush, the 213. I'm just going to grab the tip of the brush though. I'm not going to grab the side. I'm going to pat it off because again I don't want a whole lot of shimmer. I really want to control how much product I apply. And I'm just going to go right in the inner corner of my eye. This is just going to create a more open eye. Okay, side, and I'm going to grab this shade right here, which is a brighter or a foiled, more metallic eyeshadow, and I'm gonna load up my brush and I'm gonna pack that guy on. Okay, for eyeliner, I'm gonna use the same eyeliner on both eyes, but I'm gonna show you more technique and what's gonna give the hooded eye more of a lift. I am using the Physicians Formula. It's just like their Lash Boost. It's called Eye Booster 2-in-1 Lash Boosting Liner. It's kind of like a liquid liner, but it has a really fine point felt tip. So what really works for me is starting in the center of my eyelid. I don't really like to start in the really inner corner of my eyelid because again, when I'm looking at you, you can see that you don't really see a lot of that lid right there. So the last thing I want to do is cover it up with a harsh black liquid liner. I really want to keep that area liner free if I can. Now sometimes I'll start in the center and my line may not be perfect and it may look really harsh, so I'll kind of have to transition it over there, but I really try to avoid getting liner in that area. So I'm going to start there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my line and I'm going to wing it up. I like to do very soft baby wings. You'll never see a really dramatic thick winged liner on me. I just don't think it's very complimentary on my eyes. So I like to do what I call a baby wing. It's just a soft little flick almost of the eyeliner just so it kind of tilts the eye up. Here, I really like this liner because I like to lay it on its side I don't know, it just works really well for me. So I kind of create that line first. I don't pull it all the way down. I don't follow my natural lash line. So I pretty much stop right when I get to that very far outer corner. Then I gently kind of flick it up, okay? And you don't have to be perfect, because then you can always kind of go back and perfect it. And that's actually a little bit higher. I got a little bit more dramatic with that flick than I normally do. And I kind of create a tiny little triangle and fill that in. So then what I'll do is I'll go to the outer corner here and I'll create a little line and just kind of fill that in. Okay, so that's what we're working with. On the other eye, what you don't want to do is do a really thick black liner that you start in the inner corner and you drag all the way down following your natural line. I'll show you. So I'm going to start real far in the inner corner, and we are going to create a thick black line. Oh, this pin's almost gone. I need to get more. Yeah, so what you don't want to do again is just create a really thick black line and go and follow your natural lash line. So you don't want to do that. You can see that when I'm looking at you, pretty much all you see is liner. And by pulling that liner down, I'm really dragging my eye down. You can see that taking the shadow down, the liner down, all I'm doing is working against what I'm trying to accomplish. Okay, so we haven't talked about brows yet. I have microblading done, so I have a little bit filled into my brows, but I do want to show you guys what works best for hooded eyes and what you don't want to do. So for the dew eye, I recommend kind of filling your brow here in like you normally would. I like to do like little upward strokes with my product rather than like side or like filling it in. I just kind of like to draw little hair-like strokes that go up almost to mimic real hair. Then I'm gonna kind of follow my natural brow shape. Again, I have microblading done, so I have a really nice shape that's been created for me. But what you don't wanna do, so I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna really stop where my natural brow would go. I do not wanna pull it further down, okay? I don't wanna extend it. Again, of course, if you have a brow that ends really early and you need to extend it, of course, but I wouldn't extend it further out than, again, that imaginary line right here. Okay, so I'll show you what not to do. So you don't want to drag that line too far down. Do you see? Okay, so I actually realized that I skipped the brow highlight section. I'm going to go ahead and do that really quickly. Okay, so for brow highlight, I'm going to use this shade by Viseart. It's this white shade. It looks really stark, but honestly, on me, I think it works well. If you are a little darker, then you might want to go with something that's not so white. And you want to have a soft hand. If you feel like it's too white, then you can always go back with your brush that you use for your crease and just kind of softly, don't really get any more product, just use what's on it and just kind of softly blend your crease up. Okay, so what you don't want to do is grab a really intense shimmery shadow. I'm going to use this Shimma Shimma, which is what I used in the inner corner of my dew eye. I'm going to grab it with a really flat, dense brush, and I'm going to put that right underneath my brow. This shadow could actually make a pretty brow highlight. It's all an application though, and I'm going to demonstrate exactly what I mean. So by taking the brush that I just used, I'm going to show you. If I swatch it on my hand here, you can see how intense that is. Now let's take another brush that's a lot softer and fluffier, like the 224, grab product, and do you see the difference in those two? I hope that makes sense. I mean, are you guys looking at this and seeing the same level of intensity? Because there's lights on this and this is metallic, it tends to reflect and make it look a little more metallic than it does. But when I'm looking at this, this looks really intense and this looks softer. I can see my skin through this. I can still see my skin tone peeking through. This is almost completely opaque and completely covers my skin. So again, it's all in application. I used this color on this eye just in the inner corner and with a softer brush. I just wouldn't recommend putting it under the brow with a dense flat brush like I just applied it. I hope this is all making sense to you guys. I hope that I'm not making you feel like you can't wear shadows that you love or you can't use brushes that you love. Again, it's all about technique and application and what you use for what. If you have any questions, leave them down below because I am really happy to answer them. Okay, so I do have a little bit of concealer on, but I want to kind of clean up under the eyes and talk to you a little bit about concealer and how that can help with your eye makeup. So I'm going to use the Kevyn Aucoin, and I'm going to use it on both eyes. On the dew eye, I'm going to kind of take it up a little bit higher. And on the don't eye, I'm just gonna kind of apply it like I normally do in my tutorials. I'm gonna take a beauty blender and I'm gonna use the pointy tip and I'm going to blend that up. By kind of taking your concealer up a little bit after you've applied your shadow, it's going to kind of give that eye a little bit more of a lift again. And just kind of clean it up a little bit. Okay, so for the don't eye, I'm just gonna kind of apply it, you know, directly under the eye and straight across, blend it out. Okay. So one trick that I love to do on my eyes is I love to line the inner rim with a brighter nude flesh tone eyeliner. I have a few that I like. Today I'm gonna use this Maybelline one, I'll link it down below. But I love to line the inner rim of my eye. I feel like this just opens the eye up, makes it look awake. I just think it's such a pretty look, especially when you use a liner on your lower lash line that's darker. Something that I personally don't like on my eyes is lining the inner rim with something really dark. Don't get me wrong, there are beautiful makeup looks out there that have you line the inner rim. I see makeup looks, I see makeup on women and they do that and I love it. I just don't personally love it on me. So I'm gonna show you what it does to my eyes. So I'm all about trying to make my eyes look a little larger. I feel like my eyes are kind of small, they're almond shaped. I like to have them look a little bit more rounded and just bright-eyed. When I line the inner rim of my eye with something very dark, it makes them look smaller. I'm gonna show you guys what I mean. Okay, so this eye has the brighter, this eye has the darker. I am gonna line the lower lash line with a darker shade. I'm gonna use this pencil. It is called Deep Plum by Pixie. And I'm gonna start in the outer corner and I'm only gonna take it about halfway. I like to take it all the way in because that will make your eyes look a little smaller. Again, if you have large eyes and you want to make them look a little smaller or a little more almond shaped, then by all means, go for it. For me, I want my eyes to look a little larger. I feel like I keep saying that, but I'm going to show you what lining all the way to the inner corner does. So I'm going to do like a thick line, or I'm going to go all the way to the inner corner. So I do recommend setting your eyeliner pencil, especially if you're working with a soft kind of kohl-like pencil, which I do. I do recommend setting it with an eyeshadow. And I like to work with matte shadows. I'm gonna grab this teeny tiny detailed brush. I believe this is the 228 by MAC. And I'm gonna go in with the shadow that I did in my crease. I'm gonna use this one. And I'm just gonna go over the liner that I just applied. Really simple. It's also gonna soften it a tiny bit. So because I stopped in the middle of my lash line, I wanna kind of soften that edge so that it's not a harsh like ending point. Sorry, my hair's in my way. So we're just gonna go softly over that line. And I am gonna do the same thing on the other side, but I'm gonna go with a really dark shadow. I'm gonna use this really, really dark brown here. And I'm going to go all over that liner. Ooh, Lord, look at this eye. It's the first time I've looked up close to it. Okay, well, there you have it. Next, I'm gonna put some mascara on. No trick to mascara, really. Just put it on. Wow, that looks crazy. Maybe I went a little too dramatic with the don't. All right, that wraps it up. I hope I showed you guys a couple of tips and tricks for hooded eye makeup and also some things not to do and why. I realized that this eye is pretty dramatic and maybe I overdid the don'ts, but I really wanted to illustrate why. I mean, if you look at the two eyes, you can see that this has more definition. You can see more of my lid, you can see more of the illusion of more of a defined crease, even though it's not a cut crease. My eye seems more open, lifted, where this just looks, you know, too much shimmer, just no definition in the crease. It makes the whole eyelid and crease area look flat. The really thick liner just completely overpowers the eyelid space and just takes up all that precious real estate that we are working so hard on for our shadow. And of course, the liner pulling it down, the shadow pulling it down, and the eyebrow extending it too far down really just turns the eye down. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down below. Can you please let me know one tip that you learned from this that you may not have known, or something that you're gonna try the next time that you do your eye makeup? I would love to hear. Leave all your questions down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.